Hi, I'm Olajide Paris of AAA Audio, and today I'm going to give you an overview of Folk Noir Qanun. Let's get started. Let's have a look at the interface starting with the main page. Over here on the left, we have an algorithmic reverb, and this is the send level to the algorithmic reverb. Over here on the opposite side, we have the dynamic style, which is mapped to mod wheel and allows you extra control over the dynamics of your performance. So that's a really great control for adding extra expression to your compositions when you're programming with the Qanun. Here in the center of the interface are 4 radio buttons that display the status of the various microphones and effects, whether or not they're active or not. So you can see here that I have the mix loaded, now I've got the ribbon loaded, and also the tube. The effects we won't talk about today, that will be for a separate video. As I toggle these radio buttons, you'll notice that the memory gets smaller and smaller. That's because I'm actually loading, or unloading rather, these samples out of RAM. So using these buttons is a really great way to save memory if you just want to keep this in your template. So over here on the left, we have a reproduction of what we have on the main page, which is the reverb and the dynamics. And again, dynamics is linked to mod wheel. Here we have a tightness control, and this tightness control gives a little bit extra attack to all of the samples. All the way over to the left where it's at 0%, it'll be a little bit more natural of a sound, and I'll play that for you now. While when we turn this over to the right, all the way to the right is its most extreme setting, and that's going to be really tight and punchy. So you'll want to use the tightness control to control the balance between a more natural sound and a more modern, more aggressive sound, depending on the style of music that you're working on. But it's a great control to have. Next below, we have ADSR, also known as Attack, Decay, Sustain, Release. Of course, there's default settings for each preset, but feel free to adjust these as you wish to shape the envelope of the sound. Last but not least, over here on the right, we have our mixer section. Just like the main page, we have the radio buttons indicating the load status. And then one by one, as you load up the mics, you'll notice that the faders raise up to indicate that those mics are now available. And then of course, we have solo and mute buttons. So if you want to hear one mic at a time, it doesn't really make sense with the mix perspective, but with ribbon versus tube, you can already hear probably a very big difference between those. And so this allows you just to well, as you're dialing in your mix, to solo the different mics. Now let's take a look at the articulation menu. To get to the articulation menu, you'll just click up in this area here. And you can see here all of the various articulations that are available for the instrument, starting with the sustains. Now, the sustains are the standard articulation. This is just played with the fingers with the finger picks of the instrument. And this is each note on the instrument ringing out to full value. And so it has a nice, long, natural decay. We've captured these with 5 round robin and 5 dynamic layers. So there's a lot of expression and depth in these, and they sound like this. And so you can hear how that highest dynamic, that ultimate dynamic, it just has a really kind of snappy sound, whereas at the lower dynamic levels, it's a little bit more mellow and subdued. So it was really important for us to capture all of the nuance of the instrument. Next up, we have shorts, and the shorts were performed with the musician just dampening each string right after she performed it to have a kind of nice, almost staccato-like sound. These were also captured with 5 dynamic layers and 5 round robins, and those sound like so. So as you can hear, really punchy. It's got a really kind of modern sound, and I think it will be really great for film and game composers to use this in places where they might use otherwise more traditional kind of percussive sounds with the orchestral strings, or even in place of a harp. Next, we have the vibrato. This is a really cool articulation. And you can kind of hear in the background those handling noises. There's a lot of manipulation that she had to do with the instrument pressing down on the strings to achieve that. And we went back and forth as to whether or not to leave that in or not. We decided ultimately to leave it in because it is part of the performance. Next up, we have tremolos, which are another part of the standard articulation set. We have them in long and short version. Here are the tremolos long. And what's really cool about the tremolos is they have this nice, almost kind of mandolin-like effect. So these can be used for nice, kind of shimmering chords, just like you heard me play now. Next up, we have our tremolos short. And I know these sound like they were recorded to a tempo. They weren't really. They're just all very short. So they kind of have a semi-rhythmic effect, and I think they can be used really effectively that way if you wanted to, for a nice kind of rhythmic drive in your track. Next up, we have trills. And then it has a really classic kind of Eastern sounding vibe, like right out of the box, if you want to exploit the library for that. And so the trills ends are more standard articulations now, being that we are not just trying to capture the spirit of the instrument and be very authentic. We are very cognizant of our audience, which is composers. And so we do have to go a little bit beyond just the standard articulation and performance set. And towards that end, we offer you the clusters. So we have clusters in long and short variations. And basically, the way that we captured these was each of the strings of the instrument is tuned in unisons, either in threes or in twos, meaning that for each note on the instrument, there's 3 strings that are meant to be tuned in unison. So for these, we had the musician tune the middle string, leave the middle string in tune, and the strings on the left and the right were detuned ever so slightly to create this kind of nice cluster effect. Last but not least, we have our clusters. The clusters are a much more modern articulation. They're not really standard for the Qanun. The way that we created the clusters was by having the musician detune her instrument. So the Qanun has this collection of strings, and each note on the instrument is either doubled or tripled. So there's 2 or 3 strings that are in unison. The way we created the clusters was that we had her leave the middle string of the group of each note in tune and ever so slightly detune the notes to the left and the right of it. And so that's a really great tool that film composers can use to have a modern sound and kind of mix the old with the new. And we have the clusters in 2 versions, longs and shorts. Here are the longs. And last but not least, clusters short. So it's a really kind of beautiful but kind of twisted, tortured sound. We hope that you'll have a lot of fun with that, particularly on horror scores or something like that. It's not a very standard way of playing the instrument, and that was part of the excitement of working with the musician on this was being able to kind of explore the horizons beyond what's typically done on the instrument. Thank you for watching this overview of Folk Noir Qanun. We're really excited to present this to the world. For more information, please visit AAAaudio.com and check out the link in the description below. See you next time.